to
If Orimo
what?
on a scale of 1 to 10 of sus, if Orimo was a 5, Onimai would be like a 5.5 to 6.
All right, well, welcome back to the finally named podcast, the Ichi Niche. How do we want to go about pronouncing that? Do we want to say Ichi Niche? Do we want to say Ichi Niche? Do we want to say Ichiban Niche?
I mean, it's 2 syllables for Ichi. Wait, is that how you're going to start off the episode like that?
I mean, we might as well. We can always trim the fat if we need to. So yes, we start the episode by establishing what the name is.
We're giving it a name finally after like 6 episodes.
We're giving it a name. Yes.
Is there even 6 episodes online?
No.
5.
There's
4?
Are there 4? I think there's 4. I don't think we've done 6. It's kind of incredible.
We've made 6,
but
I think
we've made 6.
We've made 5. I know we've made at least 5.
I think we made 5, but only 4 have been released. I don't think it's 6.
Okay.
I'll go back and check.
4.
But yes,
4.5. Half of Girls in Pants is missing.
Oh yeah, that was sad. That was very sad. But yes, what's your take? How do you want to pronounce it?
Ichi Niche is fine.
Ichi Niche, okay.
Because
we will go with
that's how you're supposed to say it, right? Ichi.
I mean, I think obviously I'm not Japanese, and I'm not that type of guy that's gonna be like, well, in Japan they go blah. But a lot of times when I hear it, they don't necessarily say the second syllable. They kind of just combine it into one word. They're like each.
Yeah, at least it's devoiced.
That's how
like a lot of syllables are devoiced at the last one.
Yeah.
Like the su syllable, you don't really pronounce the u part.
Yeah. So, but we can say Ichi. That works for me. Ichi Niche. We need to give a name. We need to differentiate.
I mean, I think when Ichi is standalone, you say more of the last syllable, but when you follow it with something, you can devoice it. Like how you said it just now, Ichi Niche.
Maybe, I don't know.
If you put it together, you wouldn't really say ni twice fully.
So you go ahead. You say it once.
Like Ichi Niche.
We'll get it. We'll get this straightened out. But that is the name moving forward. Hopefully, before the end of the year, my website will go up. Well, actually, my website will be up probably sometime in March.
Wow.
Because, so that's the progress I'm making. I had to suspend development time just for other things that have been going on recently, work and life reasons. But March I will go full gear back into working on my website. Very excited to finally get that up. It'll still be in development in March, but it'll at least be up for, the general populace to see if they so choose. But yeah. How are you, man? How are you feeling in this new, as you can say, the Reiwa era where we are consistent? We are consistent once a month.
We've been in Reiwa era for years.
When did he take... Go ahead.
Reiwa era, that was like 2019.
Was it really 2019?
Yeah, it was 2019.
Good.
Nice. Official start was May 1st, 2019.
That's crazy. May 1st, 2019? Oh my gosh, I thought it was like, I don't know, 2 years ago or something.
Nah.
But it's been 5?
4.
4. Bad at math. But that's kind of crazy. I mean, when you say that, this is just a random fact, but it made me think of an article I saw on some site recently where it was basically saying the Wii U is 10 years old, and that really tripped me out a little bit. Like,
really?
The freaking Wii U?
Oh, the Wii U.
Yes, the Wii U. Yes, it is 10 years old, and that's depressing.
November 18, 2012. Wow.
It's crazy, man. Very crazy. Which, I mean, the 3DS is not... Well, 3DS is older. So...
The new 3DS?
I don't want to think about it. Well, just the 3DS in general. The 3DS line of products. Because it came out
the first 3DS was pretty old, but the new one, new exclamation point.
Yeah.
With Knuckles.
Yeah. You're getting old, man. You're getting old. But speaking of old, I thought a good and fun conversation would be to talk about, the anime industry. Not just industry, obviously, but then some of the things going on in the industry, some of the things that we've been, watching and, been noticing, and give a particular highlight to the industry's hottest trend, theme, genre, whatever you want to call it, which is Isekai, and highlight some shows that we've watched recently as well as what we think of the genre.
Really late to the party there.
I don't know if we're late. I don't think the party's ever stopped.
I've always been on in the party, the Isekai party.
I mean, technically, I've always been on the train. I just haven't been on the modern Isekai train, like Konosuba maybe. But besides that show, I hadn't really participated. But I got my feet wet this past month, and it was enjoyable. I don't know if I could watch too many in just succession, but it's been fun. But I think, before we even start on industry, maybe it would be better to start talking about isekais as a whole. So I wanted to ask you a question actually on that. Like, what about isekais, I guess, attract you to them? What makes you, particularly excited about them? Why do you think, there's such a force that doesn't seem to be going anywhere in the anime industry? Just your general thoughts on the genre.
I think for me, Isekai, the most interesting part is seeing what kind of knowledge the main character brings from their original world into the new world. Like there are some, I think, Isekai pharmacist, where the main protagonist uses his knowledge of chemistry and science to create medicine and utilize that with magic. I haven't seen it yet, but it's something I plan to watch.
Gotcha. So really, for you, it's like it is the excitement of long ass specific name. What part of that specificality? How are they going to spin that into a unique story? I guess.
It doesn't have to be like a really like specific job, like a pharmacist or something. Like there's a Knights and Magic where main character Re-incarnated uses his knowledge of normal technology and programming to kind of meld it together with magic, making high-tech magical mecha suits and airships and whatever.
Gotcha. Would you say also part of it too is also like I guess power of fantasy as well? I know you tend to like more, I guess, dominating characters in these types of shows. This man. So you like I guess Sword Art Online is a isekai in a sense, not really.
He doesn't get reincarnated.
I guess,
no.
Yeah. Oh, so that's true. It's more trapped in a world.
I do like power fantasy, however, and there is a pretty big overlap of power fantasy isekai by using said old world knowledge and whatever as the source of their power, but not necessarily. Like this season, there's the isekai farming and isekai campfire cooking, where there's not really a lot of overwhelming power kind of thing. It's made to look powerful, but when you stand back and look at it, it's not crazy like something like Demon King Academy, which is technically not an isekai, but
same power fantasy type or same. The word's not power fantasy, but you know what I mean, like overpowered character. Well, so there was another question.
Demon King Academy is 100%, 110% power fantasy.
Demon King Misfit. I feel like you've talked about that one before. I feel like I've seen things, but when I think of that show, I think about that other one that it's Chinese based. It's the one where he was overpowered as a baby. And it's got all the weird different scenarios and stuff. We talked about it because like he got so powerful to the point that he rewrote history, or he rewinded time like in the middle of the show. I can't think of the name of that show, but it had some weird, some fun and different plots. I wasn't feeling it at first, but then we watched a few parts of it.
Oh, I said you
I'll remember
the recaps.
Yeah, it was from the recaps.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Because I'm still kind of interested in watching this show. Now that was some OP power fantasy I could get behind. It was like just over the top. But I don't remember the name of that one. Yeah, there was another question.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say there was another question I was actually gonna ask about the isekai genre for you, tying back to your statements. I honestly, yes. So I was gonna say too, as somebody who's probably watched a lot more isekai than I have, obviously another overlap with those genres is a heavy, influence of, I guess, European fantasy archetypes and such. Do you think, like, is a part of the appeal the European fantasy? Do you think a good isekai could be made without that, or do you think it's an integral part of the genre at this point? Like, because it's always set in a, you know, older world with technology that's not as advanced, and obviously you have knights and kingdoms, you have dragons, goblins, slimes, you know, the typical, you know, European, even we can even say JRPG sort of setting. It makes me curious, like, and I'm sure there's an example, I can't think of one right off the top of my head right now, but it makes me curious what an isekai would look like not in that typical setting, or if that's even something fans of the genre would even, you know, want to see in anime at some point.
I never really considered the fantasy medieval setting European, but I guess it is RPG style. But I wouldn't say it's part of the appeal, because I don't really, it's not something I would consider in watching. But
Gotcha.
it is an easy story setting for their modern world knowledge and technology to become pretty powerful in that era.
Yeah. And I mean, it makes sense. It's an easy way, like you said, to make your character stand out in that older setting, to make them easier to display how powerful and knowledgeable they may be. But it's just something that stuck out to me, because some of the isekais I'm going to talk about obviously embody that sort of visual or locale setting style. And I just thought, But okay, since we sort of delved into that, and real quick, one thing that I'll say on my personal end for isekais, I do like. I guess for me there is a fun, similar to how you were saying, of like seeing what type of gimmick they're gonna run with the isekai. For instance, one of the ones we're going to talk about is slime, which obviously the main character is a slime that's overpowered, and I really liked how they built the story around the unique powers that he gets upon his reincarnation, and how they sort of utilize those in the story. What's another one that was interesting to me? I mean, of course I love Konosuba, that he is not overpowered, but he's conniving. I like the worlds. I do like, I guess, how they, you know, I guess they really build the story and the worlds to fit the certain personality types of the main character, whether that's like shield hero, whether that's Mushu, I can't even say it. We'll just say M Tensei right now. My lips aren't letting me say it. We'll say that one. You know, I think it's pretty cool, and aesthetically too. I feel like, especially since a lot of these can come from light novels, I really like the designs, like the artists that they're getting to design the characters and the worlds really do fantastic jobs, and especially when they translate these to, you know, animation, like they really feel, you know, especially not all of them. Some of them are cheap, especially since they're being pumped out to a alarming degree, which we'll talk on later, but you know, the worlds seem very fleshed out, very colorful, very, you know, fun, varied designs to a degree. But anyways, let's talk about some of the isekais that we've been watching recently, some that we like a lot. I guess it would be easier to talk about which ones we like first. So what are some isekais that have sort of stood out to you, I guess, in the space?
Like recently or just overall?
Yeah, recently, overall, whichever you feel like you would like to touch on.
Dang, I didn't take any notes for overall. I got notes for my recent stuff, like Re-incarnated.
Well, we can talk about the recent.
As a sword. That was pretty cool.
Yes.
It was very...
Yeah, you've been talking a lot about that one.
It's very cute, pretty gruesome, and shocking at points. But I wouldn't say it's overpowered. Like maybe in the first episode it'll look overpowered, but then they get scaled down pretty fast. But I definitely recommend it.
Gotcha. That's interesting. So you said first few episodes they're, you know, obviously OP, but then like they get scaled down. Does that mean like the world and the characters, like the power scaling of the threats that she faces sort of start to match her and she has to train, or is it just that she doesn't appear as OP as she originally was shown due to, you know, probably just low-level grunts that they initially ran across?
The main character doesn't show up for an episode or two. You're mostly watching the sword in the first 2 episodes. I don't want to spoil too much, but in the first episode, it definitely looks like it's going to be some absurd OP thing. But then you see it's not what it looked like.
Interesting. So what about the personality of the guy who, or gal who reincarnated into the sword? How does that sort of work with the story? Are they fun? Are they... I watched a few clips once you showed it to me, and it has a very... How would I describe it? The word's not butler-y, but obviously very parenty. Of course, it's because, it's a young cat girl, but, like, I don't know. Describe that dynamic to me.
I mean, they didn't really have much personality as other than, I guess I'm a sword now, and I know kind of how games work, so I'm gonna start leveling up, get skills and things. But they didn't really develop a lot of the sword character other than being the guardian of the main character.
Gotcha. Can the sword move on its own, or is it kind of just...
It can.
Does it? Okay, it can. So, cool. What's another? Give me another one that I guess you want to talk about.
Tensei Slime Season 2 finally caught up. It was pretty much what I expected following Season 1, except all the killing. That was a lot of killing.
That particular, and I guess spoilers for anybody. We will try to give a general vague description of what happened, but just spoilers in case you don't want to hear anything. That particular scene fighting fighting the army, I was like, Rimuru, whoa, like that was insane. Like when they initially stated, the reason for that particular scene happening and what was going to need to happen, I don't know what I was expecting. And honestly, it is gruesome, but I may be controversial in saying this. It's slightly disappointing, I guess, because it's a very peaceful rampage. You know what I mean? Like, I was almost expecting, like, just Sakuga Fest of him just, like, going through and going to town on the army soldiers. But no, he pretty much just sort of, like, he said, all right, I'm just going to set up these, I don't know, we'll call them bits. Like, if you've ever seen Gundam and Hainu Gundam, from Char's Counterattack, just little bits that fly around and shoot. He just started spraying them everywhere. I was like, wow, that's intense. I'm still surprised though that he left certain characters alive. And I'm curious if they're still alive. They get a particular scene from when they're interrogated that confuses me as to what their current status is, but I still found it interesting that he left those three alive.
Especially the magician guy.
Yes. Which, they were hyping him up. The general council, when they had the meeting, they were hyping him up like, yeah, he's great. And even the show, to a degree, was like really hyping him up, and he just got swept. That was a little disappointing to me, too, as I was expecting him to pop off a lot. But they kind of just moved it along. They were like, okay, you're going to have a few scenes. You're going to appear pretty powerful, and then we'll move on. You'll just get curb stomped. Which, tell me how you felt about Diablo as a character, because I don't know. He had like a little, I guess it wasn't an OVA per se, but he had an extra episode in Season 1 that sort of went into his backstory a little bit, and then we finally got him in Season 2, and I guess I was expecting more of him, but it almost just seemed like he's extremely powerful. They put him there to be extremely powerful, but he didn't really get to do anything, and they're gonna send him away to go do something else for, I guess, the next season. We may potentially get to, see what he's up to. Did you even care for that character at all?
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that, since I pulled up his page like just now before, just like a minute ago. I like him. I don't like how he was pushed away so quickly.
Yes, that's my main criticism with him. He feels like a really fun, cool character that didn't get a chance to, get his time. The Onis, they're, I guess, what is their title? Because they evolved again, but they're like, my brain is saying like Ryujin, but I know that's not what their monster class is now. There's something, but they definitely all got their chance to shine, which I thought was really cool. Like, I really like how they still progress those characters. They didn't just stop with their initial power set. Like, everybody's just getting ridiculously OP, which is kind of funny. But I wish Diablo would have gotten more scenes to really, establish his power and importance in the story. But who knows? Maybe he'll get to pop off in Season 3. But yeah, Season 2 was it wasn't a stark departure from the tone of Season 1, but and I don't necessarily know if it was a natural transgression, but not transgression, progression. But I think it works well. Again, I feel like they kind of flew through it, even though it was. Is it 24 episodes per season?
Yeah.
Good gosh, it's because that means I watched like 50 episodes. But yes, it's 24, which is a lot for a standard season, but. It still didn't feel like a lot. It still felt like they went through so much of the content, and it still feels like certain parts were missing, which is just the nature of adaptations, anyways. But I enjoyed season 2. I enjoyed season 1 too. I guess I didn't mention I've binge watched the entire series, and Navin just caught up to season 2. It's a pretty fun show. I would definitely watch it again. I would definitely check out the movie whenever that becomes available in our area. Apparently, it had screenings in theaters. I don't think any of our theaters were going to get slimed though, which is fine. I'm not expecting any of the theaters around here to get slime. Dragon Ball Z Dragon Ball Super, and One Piece make a bit more sense to actually make some money back on those movies rather than slime isekai, but. Slime is a good, fun isekai, and honestly, it put me in the mood for more shows in the genre, which I think is a pretty good thing to do. I didn't feel like one reason I avoid, I guess, modern anime as well is I just feel like the fan service is just more extreme. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to be this boomer that just ignores the copious amounts of fan service in old anime, because it's always been a staple of Japanese animation. But I feel like it's gotten more young, if that makes sense. It's gotten more young. It's gotten more pronounced because, obviously they're, making works for their audience, and I just can't. I don't feel comfortable watching that as much anymore. But it's very tasteful. Very tasteful. There's only certain amounts of only so much fan service. The characters are well designed. They're all very likable. I've seen some reasonable criticism of Rimuru, which is he's a reactive protagonist. He doesn't necessarily have his own motivations. He kind of just follows what other people set in front of him, and for such an OP character, it doesn't make him as fun or developed in comparison to the rest of the characters and their stakes, which to a degree, he sort of has his own, what's the word I'm looking for? He has his own motivations in season 2 due to the certain events that happen, but that even in that, it's still reactive. Like, it's still somebody else presenting to him, this is what you should do, or this is what you can potentially do, and then he does it. And then, even like with his leadership and stuff, he's cast into those roles by other characters, not necessarily by his own desire to do that thing. Which may be a thing with isekai protagonists. I'm not entirely sure. I know Tsukimichi, which I'll touch on for a little bit in a second. It had a similar thing. Those two are actually very similar, now that I think about it, and how they're written in the story. But yeah, Slime was a fun show. I like the Onis a lot. Give me your hot take. Which is the best Onis out of the group? I'll give you 2 because there's so many. What are the best Onis?
2.
If you don't remember their name, you
definitely Benimaru is one of them.
Okay.
Dang, it's tough. Probably Soe is the second one.
So okay, that's Ninja, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't remember their names right now. But I'm going to say Old Master and the Secretary.
Hakuro and Shion.
Yes, those two. Those are my favorite. Although Soe gets an honorable mention. Soe is just pretty cool. I like the jealousy of Rimuru. Like, he's like, you handsome Bishonen that just does everything correctly. But it's a fun show. I'm trying to think. Is there another isekai that's worth talking about before I talk about Tsukimichi? I'll just go ahead and talk about Tsukimichi. And it's been a minute, so excuse me if I'm a little off, but Tsukimichi was actually the first one that I watched. I guess just giving modern isekai a chance at the start of the month. And I thoroughly enjoyed myself. Much shorter than Slime, but I was very much enthralled, like, with the world, with the characters. It's it seems like a mix of a lot of different shows. Like, I forgot when we talked about it, but I know you said it's like a mixture of Konosuba and Slime, and I think there was another show. And it definitely shows, like, there's a lot of comedy, but then there's serious moments. There's a lot of edgelordiness. Well, not a lot. There's a tiny bit of edgelordiness into it, and there's also, like, the fan service harem angle of the main protagonist. It's a pretty fun show, and I'm actually excited that there's a second season. I think it's worthy of a second season. I'm curious to see where the plot goes. Just to briefly explain the show, it centers around a character where I guess this might be spoilers. So spoilers. Have you seen it, by the way? Did you watch it? Or are you interested in watching it?
I haven't watched it.
Are you interested?
Yeah, I'm the one that recommended to you.
That's true. I won't spoil it then. He pretty much, we'll just say that the protagonist is brought into the world to defend the world, but the goddess is very vain and he's very ugly, air quotations. And so she throws him to the other end of the world where, the conflict isn't necessarily happening. And so through a series of events, he befriends the monsters of the world, and then he creates this plane separate from the human world where he starts to raise his monster army. And he has two main generals, which are Tomoe and Mio. Tomoe, which is a dragon that he encounters early on, turns into essentially like a tomboy samurai type, and then Mio, which was a spider that has masochistic tendencies. Lots of laughs with that character, and she turns into more of like a Japanese maiden type archetype. But the character relationship between those three is very fun. There's also Emma, which is the first, I guess, character that he meets in the show, which is an orc, and like just watching the characters in the show, it's very funny. There's very good, themes amongst the characters. There's a lot of, they're predictable twist or predictable abilities of the characters, but they're still fun regardless. Like, my favorite character of that show is Tomoe. Like, anytime Tomoe is on the screen, like, she gives a great laugh. She accelerates the plot. Like, she's perceptive. She has a fun power in the sense that she can view the memories of an individual and pull them out and consume them, and that lends itself to a lot of fun gags in the series. And I like the samurai aesthetic that she tries to emulate. Very, very fun show. And I think, I don't know if I would have given Slime a chance if I didn't watch this show, mostly because I just enjoyed it so much. I was looking for something else after watching that show. So definitely looking forward to season 2. I don't think it has a release date per se, and I don't know if it ever will with the way this industry is, but we'll talk about that later. Is there any other isekai you want to touch on before we potentially, transition to another topic?
I got some seasonal shows I've been watching, but like it's not really isekai. It's only maybe like 2 of them are isekai.
Yeah, go ahead. We can just transition into just things that we've been watching. So go ahead. Feel free.
Let's start with the isekai. Isekai campfire cooking. The main character gets summoned with a few other people. However, his hero skill or summon skill is instant online delivery from his online shopping portal, which has branded like partnerships, so that's like their whole shtick of promoting the show. So they have like branded soy sauce and mayonnaise and whatever. So
that's interesting.
So that's mostly all he does. Is cooks stuff, Japanese food at the medieval RPG people have never tried before. There's also,
so with that one,
yeah, go ahead.
I saw an initial clip. I know he was this. I don't know when this happens in the show, but like it seemed like there was a wolf spirit or entity that sort of appears and like I guess tastes his cooking. So what's the relationship between the protagonist and that wolf entity? Because I saw another clip where he was feeding him like spaghetti, and that he was like, "Oh my god, like what is this?"
I think that was
it's delicious.
The second episode where
okay.
He was in a party with some adventurers getting escorted, and behind him is like a great wolf or legendary wolf, and he's just like, "Oi, give me some of that." And he did, and They formed a pact, became his familiar, and that's it so far. All he wants is to is eat. Yeah.
How many episodes are there out currently?
I think we're on the 4th or 5th.
Oh, okay. So yeah, so we're early into the season. So
Or we're on. No, actually, that was the 3rd one that we finished this week. The 4th one is next week.
Gotcha. Do you think the show is going to be more slice of life oriented, or is it maybe going to have some, action or some particular other types of genre, maybe mystery or anything like that?
Oh, it is definitely slice of life.
Slice of life. Gotcha. All right. Well, what's your next one?
I think that's it for the isekais for the season that I've been watching. I mean, technically there is one other, but there's really no isekai elements. It's called The Magical Revolution of the Re-incarnated Princess and the Genius Young Lady. That show is mostly capitalizing on the Yuri aspect. It became popular after Licorice Recoil.
Gotcha.
And it's working. Looks good. Lots of Yuri scenes, but
that fan service that I was talking about earlier. Do they at least look older than 16 or 14? We'll say that.
Maybe 17, 18.
Well, I mean, I can't complain. Like, again, old. It's synonymous with Japanese animation, so there's that.
They're not schoolgirls, at least.
That's a step in the right direction, I guess.
They are royal princesses.
Royal princesses. I guess I can't talk because at some point we're gonna pop off about Symphogear. So
hey,
that's so that's.
I should probably watch it though.
Yeah. I should have season 5 at some point very soon, so I will have
this
them all.
Man.
And yeah, it's out. It's finally come out. It's dropped early, so I'm excited. I still need to watch season 3 though, but that's another topic. We'll talk about Symphogear another time. So yeah, tell me about your the other simulcast you're watching.
Well, I guess I could continue with this season. Bofuri 2. Nothing's.
Okay, that's the Shield
really happening.
Isn't that Isekai?
Yeah. No, those are regular girls playing a video game, a VR.
So
video game.
Oh, so it's a Sword Art Online type. So they're not trapped in or anything.
No, it's a regular game.
Gotcha. It's pretty neat. So are there in that, are there like stakes?
No.
Like obviously there's stakes within the game. Okay, so no stakes.
No,
so.
Everything is good, fluffy.
Interesting. I feel like I kept getting that one confused with another one, but I do know which one you're talking about. Black-haired female protagonist, at least her VR avatar, I assume. So what do you like about that one? I guess besides it being fluffy.
The main character gets a lot of crazy skills that are acquired in ways you wouldn't expect, or neither the developers expected. So she kind of breaks the game a lot, and the developers just have to keep working around that because they can't nerf her, otherwise it would throw the balance of the game off. But other than that, she just meets lots of people, lots of interesting people. They do a lot of like in-game events against other clans, and they all get devastated and amazed about what else she has up her sleeve. And she's not doing it on purpose.
So
she just gets them.
Gotcha. On that point too, do they focus a lot on, like, I guess the out of the game character moments? Like, do you get to see glimpses of the actual person, or is it mainly just focused within the game world?
No, you really don't see any of that. And most of their character designs are the same in the game. So it's not like a completely new avatar or something.
Gotcha. Cool. So I assume that one's also like only a few episodes in, maybe 4, 5, 6.
Yeah, it's been about 3 or 4. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Well, the season only started like second week of January, first week, and now it's like the third.
Crazy. Time is moving though.
Yeah. On average, we're on episodes 3 and 4 throughout the season.
Gotcha. Oh well. You were hinting at one to talk about something else.
I've got a few more of the season. Danmachi 4 Part 2. Nothing's really happened. There's not much to say on that. They've been doing the same thing for like 3 episodes.
But does it seem like it's building towards something, or is it literally just wasting time, fights?
Yep.
Interesting. I assume it's like side characters and not necessarily the main character being involved in this situation.
Yeah. I mean, the main character, you just have to see why they're, or what position they're in to see why they can't do much. But the other side, I guess the rest of the group is kind of stuck doing their thing. But it's kind of spoilers though.
Yeah. Well, not to get too deep into Danmachi, but I was going to ask about that. Because I started season 1 a over again to work my way back up to get to season 4. And one thing I noted with the show is it's sort of, it's not like, it is in your face fan servicey, right? And I don't want to keep pampering on fan service like it's some big detractor. I watch fan service. I'm not some prude, nor am I some judgmental guy. But one thing I thought that was very interesting that I didn't remember when I first watched it, it has the type of shots that I remember from like Space Battleship Yamato 2199, like those types of shots. Like, it's not like trying to do it, but it's trying to do it. You know what I mean? Like, every time you get that pan of the butt or the voluptuous woman. But you told me that sort of tones down. And it made me curious because the first season, at least as far as I'm watching right now, it's got a more lighthearted tone. Of course, any stories, unless it's like super like dark, like Now and Then Here and There, it sort of starts off light and then it transitions more into its actions, and then you start to unravel the world and see darker themes. But do you think it still keeps some of the lightheartedness in the later seasons, or does it sort of make a tonal shift? Because it sounds like to me like it gets a lot more serious the more seasons you go into.
Oh yeah, the fan service and lighthearted is definitely most of it in season 1. Season 2 gets pretty dirty-ish, dark, but not crazy. Season 3 there's some stakes, and season 4 there's some bigger stakes. Like, there's practically no lighthearted fan service to speak of.
Interesting. So that sounds fun then. And again, I like lightheartedness, and I also like deep stakes. So I was just curious because I told you I was watching that and like Bungo Stray Dogs at the same time, and just alternating between the two shows. I was just like, man, there's a stark difference between this and this. Which Bungo has its own type of fan service, which is just the Baishonen pretty guy aesthetic. But I'm excited to watch it again. I do remember enjoying season 1 a lot. I also got the spinoff, which focuses on the I forget the family name, but the his main affection group of characters, third party. And I also got the movie as well. But I think you said you didn't watch those, or they're not really worth it.
The movie?
Yeah, there's a movie. Hold on, it's under a lot of stuff. I think I can find it though. There's a Damachi movie.
Orion something?
Yeah, Arrow of Orion. Yeah.
Oh yeah, okay. I haven't seen it.
Maybe I'll stream it for us.
Wow. It's been like
watch party.
2 years.
I know. But I'm trying to get back into it. But yeah, that'd probably be a fun watch once I've gotten caught up. I don't actually know where that fits into the timeline. Or even if it's like, I assume it's not important to the canon story, so it may just be I watch season 1, potentially season 2, and then we just watch it. But sounds fun. So yeah, let's keep going through your list, and then I'll do my list.
My neighbor is an angel, fluffy rom-com. The stuff I watch all the time, read.
Yeah, I know.
But it's kind of getting interesting now since the anime has progressed past the manga now, so we're getting new content, at least for the manga readers. I don't know about
do you know if it's original by the anime production company, or if it's actually being assisted by the original author? I'm
pretty sure there's a light novel that's way ahead, so
gotcha. Okay,
probably not original stuff.
Gotcha.
But there's what else today? That new episode came out today. There's Re-incarnation of the strongest exorcist in another world. Hey, that's an isekai. I forgot.
There you go.
The world's strongest exorcist in, like, say, ancient Japan. He reincarnates into a world like medieval European RPG world. Yeah, that's the one.
That's the isekai, all right.
That's the yep.
So what you're saying is the protagonist world, is oh, go ahead, sorry.
There's magic in that world, but he can't use any of that world's magic. His magic that he can still use from the old world is like old Japanese paper talisman magic. I forgot the name of it, but that's his, like, he's still able to use that.
Interesting. So what you're saying is the protagonist of this series is Abe no Seimei. That's what you're insinuating, right?
He's like 12 years old.
It's a young Abe no Seimei,
I guess.
So I'm curious too, because obviously we said, overpoweredness is an overlap of the series. It doesn't sound like he's very overpowered. I mean, he introduces a new power system into this new world, but like, is he OP? Is he like?
I mean,
that's a dumb question based off of the name of the show, but actually no, because he was the strongest exorcist in his previous world, not necessarily in this new world. Okay.
I mean, it appears to be quite strong, and the show may seem one-dimensional at first look, but then they reveal some of the plots and some of the side characters that have actually like thinking brains. So it's not like just super superficial or just pretty obvious isekai tropes.
Gotcha.
I think his current main goal is to make someone else appear the strongest character or person, so he can work in the shadows, I guess.
Interesting. There's just so many. It's like Halloween candy. Just pick your isekai, man. Just if there's something that you would want to see animated, there's probably an isekai for it. Cool. Well, you got any others, or?
I think I saved the best for last. Onimai.
Oh no.
Great.
Oh
Studio
no.
Bind. Yeah. The I'm Now Your Sister show.
Oh my goodness.
That I don't expect you to watch because it's kind of sus.
You sure it's kinda? That show is.
I mean, they'll bait you into thinking it's sus, but it's actually wholesome.
I mean, I'm sure it's on the same level of sus as like Orimo, or shows of that nature, right? Hey.
Slightly more sus than Orimo.
That's I'm gonna have to introduce you to John from Tennessee.
John in Tennessee, go ahead. What you want to say?
That shit is fucking trash, dog. Get the fuck off the airwaves.
Oh,
That's my response to Onimai. But I think an interesting thing to
if Orimo on a scale of 1 to 10 of sus, if Orimo was a 5, Onimai would be like a 5.5 to 6.
So it's not that. Well, it's still a good much more, but
what? No.
Wait,
You'll at first appearance it looks like a 6, but then they bait you again. It drops to like a 5.5.
Well, I'll be honest with you, man. I've seen how you use decimals in rankings, so that 0.5 is still pretty strong. that 0.5 is very strong. I do think an important thing to touch on with that show,
it looks too good,
is yeah, and that's what I was gonna say. The studio behind it, Studio Bind. It seems like you said they're full of top tier animators that have been given the opportunity to sort of work on projects that that they want to realize. They're mainly the studio responsible for gosh, just say it for me.
Mushoku Tensei.
Yes, I don't know why my tongue is getting tied on that, but and that show looks pretty good. Themes of the original story aside, that show also looks phenomenal.
Yeah, same thing.
I've seen clips.
Same thing with Onimai.
Yeah. I've seen clips, and Onimai looks very, very well animated. I'm just, of all the things they could use their talent on, I get it. It's a bunch of degenerates that are extremely talented making content for themselves, but come on, can you throw me a bone? Can we really, that of all shows, how many episodes are out of that show? Is it also
probably 4?
Like 4? Okay.
You should watch it.
So does it look like it's leading to any actual payoff that's not degenerate in any way, or is it just a degenerate show and you're just supposed to enjoy the
man, it's hard to call it degenerate show because they don't do anything degenerate. It's not like
but they told the line of it.
It's not.
That's the joke.
The what?
Isn't that the joke? Like, obviously they're not doing anything necessarily like degenerate, but it toes that line, and that's the end joke that keeps.
It doesn't toe the line. It's just when there's like certain like gag scenes where they cut the camera to like just out of frame or kind of sus sounds, but then they show the whole context. It's like, oh, you got baited.
I mean, I saw one scene that was pretty tame, and it was when I think protagonist was gaming, and I guess I'll refer to him as she, but she was like, no, I can hold it in. I can hold it in. Or she looking at the bottle, and she was like, I can just use the bottle. Then she just runs into the bathroom. That one was pretty. It was pretty funny, although that was a very short segment out of the show. Crunchyroll hasn't done a lot of clips for that show, unlike they do for some of the other shows, which may be intentional. I don't know. But honestly,
that show it doesn't dive into the degeneracy like Oremo does.
Yet.
It doesn't. It's wholesome.
Yet.
It's wholesome. They're
but
sisters.
It doesn't matter how I feel, as long as you're enjoying it. And if you say it's wholesome, then it's probably wholesome. But, you know.
It's not.
I don't think
it's designed to be degenerate. It's just the main character just learning how to be a normal girl with the help of his sister.
I would, I always think, watching a show like that, like, what's the mindset of the protagonist? Like, your gender being changed, not of your own volition, and, especially, like, biologically changed. So, to a degree, like, now you got the period and stuff. Like, what's the age?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I can't tell the age.
That was a particular topic they tackled in the episode 2, I think. They did it in a very mature way, not degenerate, very wholesome.
Interesting. So they're like at least probably around 15 to 16. They look like younger girls. I don't know if he was older.
The sister is like 15, I think, in high school. And she's like a brilliant scientist person. And she changed him into her neat brother that was like, I want to say, it's definitely older than her, maybe 19, 20. Turned him into like a 10-year-old girl, maybe younger. Don't know.
Well, I will give the show brownie points, and if they did, I mean, that's an obvious thing to tackle in a show like that, but if they did it tastefully, I will give props.
Very tasteful.
That's a very important thing to young women and women in general.
Watch it.
And you don't realize as a man how important things like that are until you start living with either you have a young girl or you start living with a woman. So it's
to watch it.
Okay, I'll give it props.
Watch it.
Go ahead.
You gotta watch it. Give it props.
Nah, I can't. I can't watch it.
You can't.
I can't watch it.
You can't.
I'll catch clips.
No. It looks too good to ignore.
Oh man,
the OP and ED very catchy.
I think it was honestly I don't remember if it was the OP or the ED, but it was the OP or ED that led me to believe it. Outside of just the premise itself,
OP is pretty sus.
That's what
like a
okay.
6.5 or something.
Yeah, that was what got me. But I mean, it's only 4 episodes, and you know what? I'll wait until
the OP is more sus
over.
than the show.
I'll wait till the season's over, and if you want to, let me know like how you believe it is. Give me your honest opinion of how sus it is. I'll think about watching it because it is really well animated. The designs throw me off a lot. It's not my cup of tea, but if you want to talk about it at some point, I'd be willing to brave that storm to watch it. I mean, I still have Arpeggio of Blue Steel. Not Arpeggio Blue. Is that? Wait, that's what it's called, right? Yeah. Arpeggio Blue Steel. Still have that sitting in a place to be watched. I just forgot about it, but yeah, that's that show. But yeah, I'll quickly touch on mine, what I've been watching lately, and then we'll get to industry sort of wrap up. But rapid fire really quick. One thing that I've told you off the mic, GaoGaiGar, I am braving that show. It is top mecha. It is top traditional mecha. If you've ever wanted to see a show, like if you've ever seen Gurren Lagann or a G Gundam, particularly like very hype shonen type mecha, you have to watch Gurren Lagann. But with the giant asterisks of you watch it in a very well lit room, and that you turn the brightness down on your screen, and that you turn away from the villain scenes. Like, the epilepsy triggering in that show is on a whole other level. Each scene that features the villain inside their villain cave or whatever, extremely fast and hard white strobing lights for like 2 to 5 minutes at a time, depending on how long the scene is. It's so intense. Like, I showed my wife And I joked with her about it, and like she was just randomly walking past my door one day, and she's like, "Man, they're showing another scene like that," because she could just see the intense like lights bouncing off of my bookshelf and me, and this was in a fully lit room. And even like the transformation scenes and some of the attack scenes of the mecha, like they utilized like rapidly transitioning red and blue lights or these like super light green lights. It's really intense, and I hate it because I feel like it ruins, you know, the enjoyment of a incredible mecha show. Like it's like I've truly enjoyed it. The character designs, the level of detail, the animation, you know, the story is, you know, pulpy shonen action, but like it's fun in that way. You know, you sort of know what you're getting into, and it's that to the max. Like the scenes are hype. Like when Guy gets into when he transforms fully into GaoGaiGar, and he's like, "Hell and heaven!" You just get chills. Like, and then he says some stuff that I don't remember. It's like "Gomuga ga" before. I don't know, man. You just have to see the scenes to see it. But it's like it's top tier mecha show if it's not for those lights. And what I've read is that it's less pronounced in the later parts of the show because it's like a 26 episode show, or it might be more than that, but I think it's like 26. But that stops later on, but it just, gosh, it hurts. It hurts the eyes. What else did I start watching? The rest of these shows that I've watched, I've only really watched a few episodes because I just haven't had time, but I'll just briefly touch on them. I found it interesting that you noted the farming isekai. Not farming. I don't actually think you talked about that here.
Oh yeah,
that's okay.
I didn't.
There's a farming isekai. And we can circle back around if you want to touch on that briefly, but the cooking isekai, that one, you made mention of the branding, and that's a staple of Tiger and Bunny, which is another Sunrise show, like GaoGaiGar. But this one, it centers on like a Sentai-esque premise. So you have superheroes. I wouldn't even say Sentai, actually. It's actually more American superhero. So the story revolves around an older guy who's not in his prime anymore in the superhero scene. And the superhero, it's more, what's the word for like, I guess, it's not jaded. But it basically, it's like looking at superheroes not necessarily in the, you know, the spotlight or the superhero-iness that they are, but more so like with marketing and, you know, a bit of cynicism behind it. So people aren't being heroes just for the sake of being heroes. They're like trying to get their ratings up and blah blah blah, all of this. But a fun part of the show is like each hero has a brand that they're sponsored by, and these brands are actually real world brands. So even in the like the OP, like you just boldly display these brands, and it's like big brands. Like the main character is like sponsored by Bandai because they had a part in the show. And actually the main character, since his gimmick is like kind of being a washed up hero, he couldn't get sponsored by Bandai, so he's sponsored by like a secondary Bandai subsidiary. Like I don't think it's Bandai Visual, but it might be Bandai Visual. One of the female leads is sponsored by Pepsi. There's all sorts of brands just all over the thing, and from the episodes I've watched, I've loved it. It's got sort of also a buddy cop dynamic with the two titular characters, Tiger and Bunny. It's pretty fun. I think the one thing that might turn some people off is the action scenes when they're in their superhero costumes. It's 3D CGI, but it's not bad, and honestly, it doesn't detract from the show at all, in my opinion. The character designs are really nice. And actually, when I was looking up, and I might need to fact check this later, or somebody can fact check me, I don't know, but the main character designer, and I don't remember his name, and I hate that I don't remember his actually. No, I have a book on it. Yes, it is Masakazu Katsura. And you don't know that name, but you'll recognize his work because he's the main mangaka and author for DNA Squared, if you remember that show. And also such works like Video Girl I and Ease and that sort of stuff. And I didn't realize, and I sort of see it in the designs, but that's why it looks so good. Like if you've ever seen any of his works, like they're incredibly detailed and very beautiful. And I'm a little horny, but incredibly detailed. So yeah, that's been a fun show to watch. I also took a peek at I briefly touched on Danmachi and Bungo Stray Dogs. Just to touch on Bungo. Bungo is pretty fun. I like the gimmick where it's also sort of set in a European setting, almost like a Sherlock Holmes style. And I think Sherlock Holmes is even in the story, if I remember correctly, but that's like later seasons. But like you have these like characters who have these special abilities. The main character, he channels like a white tiger. You have another character who can essentially cancel out abilities. You have one, I think it's called, he's like one of the main antagonists, is Rashomon. And I know this is like a surface level that's not really detailing like what these powers do, but the power system in the story is really cool. The characters are really cool. They have unique personalities. The designs are very beautiful. I've already seen the first season, but I'm watching it so that I can get caught up because I think what is it? Season 4 is airing this season, and I eventually want to watch that too. So I'm making the trek back through Bungo Stray Dogs, and thanks to Right Stuff Anime, which, you know, if you want to sponsor us at any point, I mean, I'll definitely take a sponsorship. I'm not begging or anything, but you know, if you want to sponsor us, I picked up seasons 1 through 3 and the movie as well, so I'm excited to watch those. But I remember watching Bungo Stray Dogs like back in college, and I really enjoyed that show. And I think just because I fell off of anime a little bit, I never watched. I might have watched season 2, but I definitely didn't see season 3. So that's a fun show, and Dalmachi's fun too, but I haven't watched enough of that to give a definitive comment yet. I think I enjoyed season 1 when I watched that one, but I'll need to go back and watch it again. And honestly, those are it. The only other thing I'll touch on, which is a stark departure from a lot of these shows, I started watching Card Captor Sakura, which I was excited to watch that one, mainly because, so I didn't watch Card Captor. I forget what it was called in the US, but it actually used to air on, it was either I don't know if it was Kids WB, because these are all technically sort of the same thing, but I don't know if it was Kids WB or Foxbox or which of those Saturday morning cartoons segments it was, but it used to air in English at that point. I never watched it then, but I love Clamp. I love their art and their character designs, and to a degree the stories of stuff too. So I picked up the Blu-ray release of Cardcaptor Sakura, which contains the full series, which is like, it's a lot of episodes, but they did NIS released a version of it. Beautiful transfer of that show. Like, that show is incredibly gorgeous. Like, if you ever get a chance, you need to check out some like screens or some clips of it. Like, gosh, it's a really pretty show. And it's a pretty good magical girl show. Again, it's definitely one aimed at like a younger girl audience. You have the extremely be shonen hot guys, and obviously you have the younger girl that's in like middle school who's, you know, fighting these monsters, or the cards essentially, but in a tasteful way. It's no like, you know, ultra violence or anything like Madoka or something like that, but it's a fun show, and it's a very well animated show, and I'm excited to go through the series. I think my main draw to it is similar to what your draw to Onimai was, which was just, you know, it's very gorgeous, and it's got it's very well animated. Like, the first few episodes I watched, I was like, this is impressive, and I'm excited to see. It's definitely got a Pokemon type feel to it too, because essentially her mission is to catch all of the card monsters and reclaim them, and there's also a nice fun gimmick where she has a different costume for each episode, which I thought was pretty cute as well. So excited to watch that. But yeah, that's about all I watched, I think. And if there is something else, I'm not going to talk about it. So before we like move on to industry, is there anything else you want to touch on?
I don't got anything.
All right. Well,
I got some couple things in industry, but it's not much.
Gotcha. Well, let's do industry then. And one reason I wanted to touch on industry. You know, obviously we talked about isekai, and obviously that's a big industry staple. But me personally, actually, one thing I was thinking about with industry is not even just like industry in Japan, but also even industry here in the United States. And what made me think of it was I was, again, Right Stuff, the consumer of my wallet. They you know, had the sale or whatever, but I always check the out of print like last chance items on their website. And I was looking at it a few weeks ago, and I noticed like a lot of the Funimation titles were on last chance, which makes sense, but it also like it saddened me a bit because I realized, you know, a lot of these titles are not going to get reprinted again. A lot of these titles are, you know, obviously they're gone. Like they're not, you know, worth, I think, Crunchyroll reinvesting production into, you know, making new copies of. Now they've already started like making, you know, sets for Yu Yu Hakusho, and they actually have a new 30th anniversary Cowboy Bebop set, and you know, they also have their own titles that are popular on their platform that they're putting out. Like, I believe Sunny Boy is a title that they've released. Slime is a title that they released. I know they're going to absorb Demon Slayer and start releasing those as well. Hell, they even did a repackage of Dragon Ball GT, of all things. The original Dragon Ball GT DVD collection, and they reprinted it with Crunchyroll's logos and branding. So I guess I wanted to touch on like, I guess what's going on in the industry, like what are we seeing in the industry, what, you know, how are we feeling about it, and I sort of gave my opinion because, again, more so just on like the North American scene. The monopoly is becoming strong, and during that last sale that they had at the end of last year, I picked up a lot of Funimation titles because, you know, there's just a lot that they're not necessarily gonna reprint, like Noien. I had never heard of that before, and I probably never would if I didn't pick it up. But, you know, just titles that are interesting, but since Crunchyroll's not necessarily focused on physical releases, you know, they have everything on their digital service, what that looks like. I think more so for you, though, obviously you're not purchasing Blu-rays like I am. A big part of the industry is sort of the exhaustion, the amount of content that's out there. I think it's becoming overwhelming, not even just for the studios, but also for the people watching. Like, how do you keep up with all of those different shows? And I can imagine it has a noticeable effect on the quality of the shows. You know, like shows aren't as well polished or look as good, and you know, there's the expectation probably now that, okay, well, yes, it doesn't look that good, but we'll clean it up for the Blu-ray release. And I don't know. And one thing that we both paid attention to was how shows like Nier Automata. Is it Automata or is it Automata? Because I used to say Automata.
I think Automata is how they would say it overseas, but
gotcha.
Yeah, I think either's fine.
So, yeah. And Nier Automata, Kubo. What was the other one? There was another show that got delayed, and it's just sort of, I don't know. What do you feel about the industry? Like, are you able to keep up with all the shows that are being released? And like, do you notice the quality drop? Because again, you watch more modern releases or the seasonal animes than I do.
I mean, quality's usually just how big the name is in like the studio, and the popularity of the series usually just determines what budget they give it. Like Nier Automata, but even though it's hiatus, it's being done by A1, and they're one of the top studios. But I know Kantai Collection Season 2, it's been on hiatus multiple times. Maybe not hiatus is what you wouldn't call that. It's been delayed multiple times. Like episode 6 was delayed a month or so. Episode 7's also been delayed a month. But they all say it's due to COVID, so I assume there's a COVID surge going on, but I don't know.
I mean, there may be a COVID surge going on, but I also think too, like, obviously the production schedules for a lot of these like lend themselves to people getting sick anyways. Like, it's just, there's just so much on the docket. And maybe you disagree. I just feel like the amount of anime on a seasonal basis, like, is just extremely less. Like, there's just so many different shows that are being produced and put out, and I just can't reasonably see how, you know, people are able to keep up with that pace. I don't think they are keeping up with the pace. They're just replacing people as they drop, I feel. It makes me worry of what the anime industry is going to look like, you know, even the manga industry as well, but you know, what does that industry look like in, you know, just a few years? Are things going to change? Are things going to get better, or is it just going to get more intense, you know? And that is not to say, like you said, you know, depending on the brand and the show, like obviously it gets the budget, but even with that, you know, they're still cranking out another 2 or 3 shows a year.
Yeah, like Mappa's pushing out Chainsaw Man along with two other titles I think they were working on. Like, yeah, budget and popularity doesn't lead to workplace reform or something.
Yeah, I mean, even with My Hero, because I want to let you get your jokes in. You know, that's still big, whether you believe it or not, whether you and the haters believe it or not. But like, I watched it as well, and I mean, it's on par with like season 6 in particular,
yeah,
like scenes in season 6.
Like a B-
it's on
show,
par,
dude. B-.
I'm just
B tier.
But see, you know, it's not supposed to be, because that's supposed to be a big bitch, big budget, big bitch. It's supposed to be a big budget.
No, they gave
you know,
everything rightfully to Mob Psycho season 3.
and that's the thing, though. Like, but that's my point, and it's good. You know, anime fans are eating good. Don't get me wrong, because Mappa, I feel like I've heard things about, you know, their production, like how they treat their employees and stuff, and it's not great. But like, at least the shows that they're putting out, I think they're top tier. Like Chainsaw Man looks fantastic. You already know how I feel about. We didn't talk about Mob, but we'll do that when I watch season 3.
Yep.
We'll do that.
You
when
gotta
I
watch it all
season 3
first. Yeah.
But I can just say from season 2 and 1 alone that I just watched recently, like, I can only imagine season 3 is just a continuation of the excellence that is the Mob series. And I don't know, man, I do feel like with all of these different shows, like, they're fun and people are enjoying it, but I feel like the market is becoming incredibly oversaturated. I feel like we're even past the point of the bubble economy that sort of existed in the 80s and to the early 90s, that sort of gave birth to a lot of the different, you know, anime from that era. Like, I feel like they're reaching a point where the industry is just going to collapse in on itself, and I'm curious what that looks like. You know, obviously now too, there's a lot of outsourcing, so it's not just, you know, in-house development. Like, you have studios in China and Korea and all other sorts of, and I'm sure even, you know, reaching out to American artists or studios or whatever. But I don't know, it's just interesting to watch it all. And going back to the American side of industry, again, like, obviously I like to own my anime. Obviously I like, you know, purchasing the Blu-rays and stuff, and I'm always excited when there's a new release, especially one that I'm interested in, or if I give, you know, a show a shot that's on sale for like pennies. Like, at some point I'm gonna watch Flowers of Evil, which I've heard is pretty good, or I don't know, Flip Flappers. I got Flip Flappers for very cheap from Sentai Filmworks, and that show looks insane, but I've never really heard anybody talk about it. There's also School Live sitting on my desk, which is insane in a different type of way. But saying all that to say, I guess, what's the word? How would I want to phrase this? The monopoly that's going on in the current industry scares me for what type of releases that we get, who's releasing it, those sort of things. Like, I feel like Sony, Crunchyroll, like, it's getting to a point where I don't know how, you know, Sentai Filmworks or other type companies like compete. Like, when you look at the North American, specifically North American scene for you know, anime merchandising or content or whatever, only companies that you have now, so like for physical releases, all you have now are Sentai Filmworks, Discotek, and Animego, which he really only does things through Kickstarter, and like that's every few years. I don't know when his next title will be, if at all. But what else? Who else? Oh, and Media Blasters. Can't forget the GOAT, Media Blasters. But you really only have so few options. All right, Funimation got consumed, and I don't know what they look like, moving forward. Sentai Filmworks is technically owned by AMC, so they're not even independent anymore. That happened a few years back. So really, your only independent ones are like Discotek, which I think they're safe just because they exist in a niche. They kind of do like older shows. Well, not kind of. They do a lot of older shows or not as current shows. I think the most current thing they've probably done is like Konosuba, maybe. I'm sure there's some more current ones. Oh, they did To Be Hero, but that was a limited release. But regardless, they are in a specific section. But what happens when, the money just gets to the point where, they either get bought out or, it's now we're under this monopoly of only this one company. Like, I feel like Crunchyroll is slowly coming. Like, I heard some things, the AMC is not looking as great money-wise, and I'm not sure if this is a different AMC than the ones that, related to the movie theaters, or if it's something else. I need to do more research on that. That's my fault. But, I'm curious how High Dive is doing in comparison to Crunchyroll. Like, High Dive, or Sentai Filmworks, they get some pretty good licenses. They recently acquired the Lupin spinoff, which Lupin Zero, which focuses on a younger Lupin. They also got Akiba Maids, which you were telling me about, which I want to watch. That is the name, right? The one with the maids fighting for their neat masters or whatever, or their weeb masters.
Pretty much.
Yeah. They've gotten some good license collections, but I just don't know how they fight against the powerhouse, which is Crunchyroll, which is or I guess Sony, which has acquired all of these different licenses and all of these different services. Like, the funny thing with Right Stuff, right, that was acquired by Crunchyroll / Sony, and Sentai Filmworks used to use the same warehouse as Right Stuff. So I don't know what that situation is. I think I'm still waiting. I might have gotten it, actually, but I was waiting for a while for an order from them from the Christmas season as well, because they had super discounted shows. And I'm just curious, like, are they going to make their own warehouse? Are they going to have to establish their own? Are they going to try and find somebody else? Are they going to continue to work with Right Stuff, even though it's technically a direct competitor? Like, it's getting interesting, but also scary because, again, if you have a monopoly and in a market, they have full reign to sort of, dictate prices, dictate what's released, all of these different things. I like High Dive's price. I plan to subscribe to High Dive and watch, some of their stuff, which they have a good selection of shows, nowhere near what Crunchyroll has, but it's only $4.99. But Crunchyroll's Beep Beep, they have, like, what is it? Like, I think their tier is like $9.99, and that's just for the lowest tier. And I'm like, good night. Thankfully, since I'm a Right Stuff Got Anime member, they offered me like a 30-day trial versus the 14-day one that I was going to take. So I'm going to use that to watch Tomo-chan when that finishes. But yeah, I mean, that's really some of the key things I wanted to touch on with the industry. And I guess, not to keep this much longer than it needs to be, but I also think too there's room to talk about the positives, which, again, anime I don't think has ever been more accessible, more fun, and more beautiful than it has now. Like, as somebody who, primarily watches shows from the 90s, 80s, and some 2000 shows, like, the level of animation and detail that goes into, some of these shows, like, clearly a lot of these shows, they don't have that. And not all shows need to have, high level of animation, but like the detail, the work, the professionalism, the dubs, like everything is pretty great. Oh, that's one thing I wanted to touch on. Like, I watched quite a few dubs. Like, I watched Mob Psycho's dub for like season 2. I watched some of Slime's dub. I watched some dubs for some other shows. The standard is changed. Like, I know you prefer sub for a lot of these, but like the dub casts and the dub performances on a lot of these more modern shows are really, really good. And I think, it's gotten to a point where like I could watch either or. Like I'm no longer in that camp of like, yeah, I'm just gonna watch the sub. Like it's really good. It's got me excited for the new Gunbuster dub that Discotheque created, which has me very excited. But I think the industry, with all of the negativity, it's doing some fantastic things. I can say whatever crap I want to about Onimai, but that is a very well animated show. I love the colors at the very least. I mean, I like the character designs as much, but like all of the isekais, like say it for me,
Mushoku Tensei.
Yes, thank you. It looks phenomenal. It looks really, really good. And I'm sure there's some other shows. I can't think of all the shows that I feel like look very good. Sunrise shows. I know you said they have a plasticky look to some of the, actual mecha, but like I've looked at some scenes for Mercury of the Witch, but Sunrise never disappoints. So I don't. They're an exception. But yeah, I think we live in a great period for anime, but also a period where we need to be, I guess we need to be wary of what is going to happen, because I think, it could go either way. It could boom again or it could collapse. I think a lot of changes need to be made. I think as North American consumers, we definitely need to diversify where we put our money. Which, if you're actually spending money on the anime scene, if you're not selling the seeds. But I think, I think that's really what I wanted to talk about. Is there anything you want to add to that?
No, I don't really have much to add to that, though.
Okay, gotcha. Well, I guess we can go ahead and wrap up. This is probably the shortest one that we've done. Any closing thoughts? Anything you want to talk about that we didn't talk about?
Probably the next time we end up recording, it'll probably be the start of the spring season, unless you have plans to adjust that.
Was that a conveniently veiled way of saying if I don't show
new podcast schedule, maybe?
Hopefully. I think once a month is reasonable. And if I find that I have more time, I mean, we can maybe knock off a week or so, but I think once a month works. It allows us to sort of see, a lot of what's going on in industry, catch up with, the seasonal stuff, and give us time to actually watch some shows in between. So I know you said the new spring season. Any highlightable titles potentially of interest for us?
I haven't looked at it.
Oh goodness, no. Okay, sorry. Anyways, well, like I said, I don't know when that subscription, that free 30 days expires, so I might have to use that earlier than when Tomo is finished airing. So maybe next time we have the podcast, we're going to talk about Mob, because I'm probably going to have watched it before the end of February. I would love to talk about Tomo-chan. I think that show is, just from the clips I've seen, it's pretty faithful. I actually have the manga because I found a deep discount seller for the manga. I'm telling you, man, if you ever get into merch, let me know so I can hook you up on where to find deals for series. But anyways, definitely talk about Tomo-chan. I don't know if we'll talk about Don Manchi or anything like that, because that's probably going to take me a minute to get through all of that. But definitely, I definitely feel like we'll talk about Mob. We'll definitely talk about Don Manchi. You can update us on how some of the seasonal shows from this season updated, and you can let me know how Onimai devolved into a degenerate mess that's well animated. No. So yeah, I think with that, we can wrap up. Give us a closing line.
I got what have I been watch a lot of Naruto clips lately, so I'll just close it with believe it. Can't see it, but I'm doing a thumbs up.
Oh my goodness, Databayo. Yes. Oh yes. One last line. Aniplex sucks. That's it.
Okay.
All right.